10th, Enfield Board of Education, 7 p.m. regular meeting to order. Peter is absent this evening, so I'm going to do the moment of silence and the pledge. So I would just like to have a moment of silence for the victims of yet another school shooting in Georgia. There's also been multiple threats of shootings at other schools around us. Keeping kids and staff safe is most important, but also getting to the root of the problem is just as important to hopefully end this horrific trend. I hope that in our lifetime we see this stop. Also, on the eve of September 11th, let us remember those who perished that day, as well as all the first responders who have perished since then due to the exposure to the air contaminants that day and the months that followed. All these heroes and victims should not be forgotten. It's amazing what a minute can change. Life can change in an instant. So be kind, always, no matter. All right, we'll do the pledge. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, fire evacuation announcement. In the unlikely event of a fire, you can go out the back doors of the council chambers, or you can go out the side doors here, left down the stairs, and out to the parking lot. There is also a lavatory announcement.
Thank you.
The lavatories on this floor are still being worked on. I would highly recommend that you take the elevator down and back up because of the security in the building. You will not be able to get back in up through the stairs. So go down the elevator, which is at the end of the hallway, to the bathroom and go back to the elevator to come back up. Okay, Kathy, roll call, please.
Mr. Janitis, Mr. Kober, Mrs. LeBlanc,
Here.
Mrs. Pickett,
Here.
Mr. Ryder,
Here.
Mrs. Acree,
Here.
Dr. Calnan,
Here.
Mrs. Cushman,
Here.
Chairwoman Riley.
Here. Okay. Number 6, board guests. A, Jack-o'-lantern festival. Good evening, Mr. Long.
Good evening, everyone. Everyone's having a nice night. Jack-o'-lantern festival. So we welcome our JFK grade 6 science teacher, Kelsey McGuire-Bruce, and I think she's here with a co-director, Danielle Reel. Welcome. She's here to speak about the Jack-o'-lantern festival that will be held on Saturday, October 19th. This event started in 2001, so please welcome me in joining Kelsey and Danielle. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, for having us tonight. Thank you, all of you, for having us tonight. My name is Kelsey, and this is Danielle, and we are 2 of the 3 directors of Enfield Jack-o'-lantern Festival. The 3 of us, along with our dedicated committee, are looking forward to bringing the Jack-o'-lantern Festival to the town green on October 19th. The Enfield Jack-o'-lantern Festival began in 2001 by a dedicated group of moms from various school PTOs, both public and parochial. This event has grown into a beloved annual tradition in the community. Our event features a wide array of activities for children, including trick-or-treat stations, food trucks, a hayride, and most notably, a stunning display of carved jack-o'-lanterns. While the Board of Education supports the event by promoting it and facilitating school involvement, they do not provide financial backing. The town of Enfield supports our event as an in-kind sponsor as well, for which we are very grateful. Their contributions include the work of Buildings and Grounds and the Enfield Police Department. We understand that these resources are allocated from the town's celebration and parades budget line item. The event is primarily funded, however, through sponsorship and participation fees. We are actively seeking sponsors for the Enfield Jack-o'-lantern event and have several exciting opportunities available, including friend of the event sponsor, candy tent sponsor, and bleacher sponsor. If you're interested in supporting this beloved community event, please reach out to us on Facebook or email, which I will also say again at the end. Your support helps make this event a success and brings joy to many families in our town, and we greatly appreciate it. We're also very much in need of volunteers. If you're interested in helping out in this exciting event, please also reach out to us. We do have a Google sign-up sheet that will be on our Facebook page live tomorrow. We're starting to register volunteers. We have shifts available for 2 hours or 4 hours, lots of options. We'll take anything. We simply cannot do it without our volunteer support, so please consider giving a few hours of your time. It's really a fun way to see the event come together from the other side as well. So to recap, the Enfield Jack-O-Lantern will take place on October 19th from 4 to 8. We do have a rain date this year for the first time, which we're excited about because we don't want to see another year go by without it. Children's activities, the hayride and trick-or-treat tent are just $5 if you bring a carved pumpkin, $10 if you do not. We want those carved pumpkins. Food trucks will also be there so you can purchase food, treats, and this year even a coffee truck will be joining us. Please follow along on our Facebook page, which is Enfield Jolf, Jolf, for more information on this event as it approaches. Our email also is EnfieldJolf, again, EnfieldJolf@gmail.com, so feel free to reach out with any questions or sponsorship and volunteer opportunities. That's all I have. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Awesome, thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Pickett.
Sorry, Scott, you can go first.
No, I just wanted her to clarify the email address slowly one more time for
Yep.
the listeners. She said Enfield,
J-O-L-F.
Jack-O-Lantern Fest,
Yep.
J-O-L-F,
Yep.
at gmail.com.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
We call ourselves Jolf, so you'll see that often.
And the
This town has so many acronyms
Yeah,
that
yeah.
thank you.
And the website's.org. Sorry, Amanda.
It's fine, you're fine.
We don't really use the website. We
Okay.
use Facebook mostly.
Okay. Sorry, thank you.
That's okay.
Thank you for keeping the tradition going. Thank you for your dedication and hard work. A question of mine is, I remember in previous years, sometimes at the farmer's market, you've had opportunities to pick up pumpkins. Will that be happening?
So we have had that happen in the last few years. Unfortunately, we are not able to secure those pumpkins this year. The farm that usually donates had a really tough year last year, and things aren't a ton better for them this year, so it doesn't feel right to accept all of their donations. They're willing to help in smaller capacities, for schools if we need them, but we unfortunately won't be able to do that huge event. So
No worries.
hopefully we'll bring it back one day.
Thank you so much for continuing this.
No problem.
Anybody else? Okay, when's the rain date? Because obviously every weekend rains.
Yeah, so the rain date is the following Sunday at the same time, 4 to 8. We understand it's a Sunday night, and with school, that's, as being a teacher, that's not ideal, but we can't save the tents or pay for the tents twice. It's a lot of financial burden to do in a whole nother weekend, so that's what we can come up with for this year.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm excited to see the pictures from it. I don't think I'm going to be here for it, but I hope everybody goes because the pictures are phenomenal, and I just love pumpkins and pumpkin carving and all that stuff. So thank you very much for all your work.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, board guests, B, LEAP presentation.
Yeah, also joining us tonight is our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, Michelle Middleton, and Operations Director, John Degg. Enfield Public Schools received a grant and joined a network of schools that are participating in the LEAP, which stands for Learner Engagement and Attendance Program, which I know the two of them will explain more. And that's to reduce chronic absenteeism in our schools by providing additional resources.
Yep. So Mr. Ryder will be adding one more acronym. So the LEAP program is a research-based, grant-funded opportunity to implement a relational multi-visit home visit program designed as an intervention for students who have missed or begun to miss too much school. So back in May, we were notified that we were eligible to apply for the LEAP grant. So this Connecticut Department of Education is asking the RESCs to administer this grant. It's mostly run by Ed Advance. So we received an allocation of $150,000, and that's funding, state's funding it through ARPA funds. And the grant period for this is between July of 2024 and January of 2026. So beyond just the funding for the program, the true value of this is being part of a program is to access to research-based interventions supported by a network of professionals who have already developed the resources needed to implement a program like this. This includes things like parent communication tools, staff trainings, and the analytics to track attendance issues and interventions. So the LEAP program started with 15 districts in April of 2021 and continued through to 23-24 school year with 14 existing grantees shown up there. For 24-25, we're part of a second cohort that's adding 12 districts to the program. And districts are added based on the 21-22 and 22-23 student attendance data and the number of chronically absent students with high needs and the percentage of chronically absent students with high needs. With small districts or large districts, those can be skewed, so you needed to meet kind of both criteria. So just for comparison, we're looking at some of the districts in our cohort. So Enfield didn't quite have the peak chronic absenteeism. We're that second from the left district. So you see some of the other ones had higher peaks. If you look at our 23-24, our most recent, we're roughly comparable with the other districts for our chronic absenteeism. Our peak was around 21% of students being identified as having chronic absence, and our 23-4 was down to about 18.7. This is higher than our pre-pandemic levels. So just a few key points about the LEAP program. This is a voluntary program. Parents will be contacted and can be declined to participate in home visitations. Other interventions will still remain in place. That's things like student attendance letters and so on. This isn't punitive visit or a well-being check. The program really is intended to support a family's educational goals for their students and build strong relationships between the family and school. No one's going out. They just show up at a parent's house. All visits are scheduled and should have a reminder to the family prior to the visit. All home visitors are going to receive training through the LEAP program. Michelle and I attended the training. They're actually quite good. All the employees are going to have their ID, and they're going to be traveling in pairs out to homes. We do intend to have the visits take place at the home or a community place of the family's choosing. We don't intend to have parents come into the school, and that kind of reinforces that there's no punitive measure here. And the research as part of the program shows that going out and visiting with families outside of the schools is much more impactful than having the families come in for these conversations. And as a district, we do plan to continue our existing attendance interventions, including school attendance teams, interventions like our attendance letters, communications with families on what qualifies as an absence from school, and we have our additional higher tier supports when we work with youth and social services. The LEAP program is designed to kind of be a continuum. There's an initial contact with a family. That contact is made after consultation with the school attendance team. They will make that initial contact, and if the family would like to have a home visit, they'll schedule that home visit. They'll have that planned meeting with the family. After that, there will be a follow-up conversation that can either be ideally by phone. If they can't reach them, that follow-up will be by email. And then this cycle repeats the process until the attendance issues are addressed, or the family says that they would no longer wish to participate. Some of our goals for the district as we implement this program is we received enough funding to conduct approximately 500 to 700 home visits between October and January of 2026. We hope to reduce our chronic absenteeism from that current 18.7% down to 14.2% or less. And we hope to reduce some of the disparities we see in subgroup attendance. So the basic structure for how we intend to implement this includes having our existing school attendance committees. They're going to identify students or families with attendance issues, and they'll be the ones who ultimately assign home visitors. We intend to have home visiting teams at each of our schools, and they'll be the ones that give the contact information to those home visiting teams. The district attendance committee is going to meet monthly. They're going to review attendance data and assign the number of monthly home visits. The school attendance committees, if they were all working independently, there is a possibility that a parent has a student at an elementary, an intermediate, and the middle school. We wouldn't want to have 3 separate visits. If we can coordinate and consolidate, we might get more impact from that. And then I'll be serving as the LEAP coordinator We'll be working with Ed Advance, who will be providing us monthly reports of our contacts. Each contact done by a home visitor is backed up by a Qualtrics survey, which has the student's information, but it also has the reason for the visit, home, and information about that, and that's how we're going to keep track of the program. I'll be also submitting the timesheets and payment, and I'll be there to address any programmatic challenges, and I'll be doing that mostly through our district attendance committee work. So the implementation plan for now is we have a posting for home visitors that closed at 4 o'clock today. I'm happy to say that we had 37 applicants. These are a range of professionals in our schools. These include teachers, behavior techs, clerical, school psychologists, so we have a broad range. And we have a good cross-sampling of all of the schools. Over the next few days, we'll be going through, trying to identify teams at schools, fill in where needed, and interview where we have more candidates than are possibly needed for each school site. District attendance committee work will start on September 26th for that first meeting. And for subsequent ones, we intend to include youth and social services just to make sure that they understand the difference between this kind of tier 2 level intervention and what we've been offering through our guidance, social workers, and the schools already with youth and social services. Home visits, we plan to start in October after our district attendance meeting. They'll go back with the number of home visits that we anticipate at each school, and they'll assign those back to team members at their school, and they'll begin those initial contacts. And then for this program, we receive our data from the state on chronic absenteeism every September. So we'll have our years. We can also get attendance monthly from the state as well. We'll also get a LEAP update monthly. But I would like to share the results of this back with you September of next year, where we still have another several months in order to finish out the program in January. Are there any questions about the LEAP program?
Jean, go first.
Do you have a backup plan in case there are families who will resist, who will not want to
Sure.
do this?
So we have 3 kind of tiers of support, right? So the first ones that go out are things like explanations of our attendance policies. What's considered an absence, what's considered in attendance at the school. And it's pretty straightforward for the state. If you're at school for more than half the day, you're in attendance. If you're not, you're absent. We do that. We have some communications that are going out, and we're going to be posting with this information to the school website. So that's kind of tier 1. Additional in that is we have our attendance letters that go out. So if you're at your 5 absences or 10 absences, depending upon the schools, that number can change. I think the high school puts it at 4. They're sending out a letter, but that just lets the families know that their students are getting close to meeting criteria for chronic absence or already are. So that's, again, just another kind of tier 1. There's phone calls that the admin or psychologist or counselors do if they notice patterns of attendance, and that's something that happens for everyone. This is kind of that tier 2 level. And again, it is voluntary. Parents might say no. The tier 1 work still continues. If it isn't addressed, there's other supports where they might get social worker, youth services, others, and those become kind of tier 3 level supports. So this is just kind of a intermediary step, and all of the other ones still remain in effect.
Anything else, Jean? You good?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ms. Blank.
I have a question. So I saw the number of 150,000.
Mm-hmm.
So is that 150,000 allocated to Enfield?
Yes.
Okay, because I wasn't sure if
Yeah,
there-
overall, I think the first cohort received around 10.5 million. Some of the larger districts got a significantly larger grant. But for our population of chronically absent, this is actually a fairly significant amount of money. Because if you think of that, we're expecting between 500 and 700 home visits. That's a significant percentage of our students. And with some assumption that some families may not wish to participate in the program, we thought that
Right.
was a really quite generous and adequate amount for
Right.
the grant.
So that was my question. I just want to say thank you for finding this grant money or applying for the grant and getting the money, because it's definitely an issue here in Enfield. And I think with our larger class sizes and different things going on within our district, that this is going to be needed more than ever. And it's a great way to connect with those families that might not have those connections already or are capable of forming those connections. I am thinking, just in the back of my head, with Jean and Dr. Jerry, this is right up your alley regarding the mental health initiatives. So this is probably of really interest to you, so I'm sure you're going to have questions and perhaps some data for you guys. So again, I appreciate your forward thinking, and I can't wait to see the connections that are made. Thank you. Dr. Callen.
Thank you for that presentation. Is there, and you might have mentioned this, and I might have just went right over my head, so forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn, but what kind of track record does LEAP have? Is it known, or is there evidence to support its utility?
Yeah, so there was a study that was completed towards the end of the first cohort. So the districts are allowed to choose their own model. So some districts saw more success than others. So for instance, we're choosing to offer this to staff, anyone at all of our schools, so that the students have someone they can relate back to at the school. So let's say it's a security guard or a school secretary or a behavior tech. It's someone they can see and relate back to daily at the school. Like, hey, I remember you. Others had home visitors teams, like coaches that went out and had vehicles, and they would just do this full time, right? Just be contacting families. And that's for maybe some of the larger districts. There was variance in the effectiveness of the programs based on the model that was chosen. The range of impact was based on time and number of visits. And they said usually within districts around 4% to 15% increase in student attendance as a result of participating, or their families that have made contact through LEAP.
And maybe you can't answer this for me, but are there specific types of interventions that go on in this home environment?
Sure. So the home visitors aren't there to necessarily solve problems for the family. They're there to go in and at least for the first one or maybe two visits, listen to see, get what's the family's educational goals. What do they want their student to do? What's their, idea of success? If there are issues, let's say that there's an issue with information coming home from the schools not in the home language, that's something that we can bring back, and that's something that could probably be relatively easily adjusted for. If the student is refusal to come to school and the parent is just unable to get them there, that's something where we could bring that information back to the school, and that might go to a different level of intervention based on the student's age. So they could do things like point the family to another resource at the school, but they're not really there as doing the same work as like maybe a social worker would. They're there more to listen, advise, see if there's an issues of connection, of language barriers, of transportation, I guess, is another one that they heard of. It was common.
Okay, and so the selection process for these individuals, they could be, can you kind of tell me?
Happy to. So we set up a couple different intervention criteria. So chronically absent is 2 or more absences per month, because chronic absenteeism would come in at 18 absences or 10% of a school year. So if you're missing 2 a month, you're going to potentially meet that target. We also, for this first year, because we're just rolling it out, said that we were going to look at students who had been identified as chronically absent in the prior year for the October initial visits, because we're hoping to prevent issues in the upcoming year. We'll start with anyone who's received 3 absences a month. However, there's going to be discretion in that. If a student has COVID, that's not necessarily someone we're going to reach out to.
Right.
But someone where it's a pattern of attendance not related to any one specific. if a student had a exceptional event and they were able to go to an athletic tournament or Olympic tryouts or something like that, that's not going to result in a home visit. So that's where we need the two levels of the committee. We need the school attendance committee to have identified the issue and to begin to see if it was a single event or is it a ongoing event that we need to then address through potential home visits.
Okay. And just one more question.
Sure.
Will this, I mean, theoretically, could this stretch the resources available to the schools? We've lost so many personnel over the last few months. Will this involve a further stretching of our resources?
So all of this is going to be happening after hours. So we're going to be doing all of this after contract hours. So in the grant, we're able to pay a very generous curriculum writing rate to this. So there won't be any resources pulled from the schools during the day. They'll be making the contacts and having the home visits after school hours.
Okay, fine. It sounds like a great program. Thank you.
Ms. Pickett?
Awesome. Thank you so much for this overview. I know a lot about LEAP, and I'm excited to see that we will be participating. So I have a couple questions, and one actually leads nicely into that last question that Dr. Calnan asked, and you did a really good job describing, so nice job. But one of my wonders is when I hear about our current model of providing tiered supports for intervention, something like a letter to me really isn't an intervention, it's a notification. So I'm excited about being able to be connected to a network of folks, get some additional training, and have this help us think about how we can do things differently. So when you were talking about the home visits and the purpose and then the data collection, I'm interested in how the district will use those home visit logs to better understand the barriers to attendance and like what can we do differently to make sure kids can come to school successfully. So I hope to hear some updates on that eventually. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on who the home visitor is. So I saw you said a posting went out.
Yes.
That's for like any staff member who
Correct.
might want to take on additional duties, certified, non-certified.
Absolutely.
Awesome. What a great opportunity. I think this model makes a lot of sense as far as connecting families to schools. I also think it'll help us assist in our family engagement activities. My one wonder question is about the sustainability of this. So it is a grant. Has there been any conversation or kind of thinking about ways that we can ensure that this continues?
Financially, no. I don't know that there is a plan at this point. We haven't discussed one. It is a considerable amount of money to be part of it. I think one of the benefits of this is we would have 18 months of practice in this, and individuals in the school who have received additional training will have seen how their data analytics system works, and we can take the practices, resources that are learned through this and improve some of our internal practices if we aren't able to continue with funding for this. So as this right now is funded through ARPA, if there was additional funding that came through from the state when ARPA funds end, we'd be happy to continue to offer it. If not, I think we would need to look at implementing some of these best practices that we learned through here in our internal systems. And it might be something where we continue with the district attendance team, right? And we use this for the skills and training and resources that we learned through this to improve some of our existing home visits that happen through our school counselors, admin, social workers, and so on. But I don't know that we could commit now, not having discussed this, put this into a budget to continue with this level beyond the scope of the grant.
One last question, or one last just comment, and I think this is really important to reiterate, and I know you reiterated it a couple of times in the presentation, so thank you, that the home visit, it's not a bad thing, it's a relational, trying to get understanding, trying to access and gain information and insight. I do think it will be really important for how our district messages that and ensures that that's part of how we're getting information out, because the reality is it is a tiered intervention. Not everybody's going to get a home visit, so thinking about how we get that out to families and make it seem like it truly is, that is the purpose and that is what we're working to do.
Yeah.
So
I think as part of, as we kind of roll this out, so we have our, Michelle and I have been to the district coordinator training. We also went and did the home visitor training just to see what it was like to go through, and so that we know what the resources are shared and what our teachers should expect. Our next step is that September 26th meeting where we have the vice principals at each school. One of them is selected to be the representative of their school attendance team. We're going to work through some of our last issues of communication around this. I envision that some of this information will be put right up on our district webpage with a link back to the school, so the parents will have a little bit more of a consistent expectation of what a LEAP visit looks like, some better clarification on what is chronic absenteeism, what counts as that, so that if they are being contacted, there's an additional resource and place to point them to find information about the program if they were looking for more.
Thank you again. I would say as a parent, I was having some playground chat with some other parents and talking about chronic absence and how quickly it can add up. And even with like the doctor's note and the here or there absence, even if it's excused, it's still interrupted learning and the impact that that has on students. And so getting that messaging out around kind of 10% of days at school and how much of an impact that has. And so thank you for paying attention to this and thank you for implementing it.
Go ahead, Mr. Ryder.
Just a quick question. I assume in the grant application process, we had to submit our chronic absenteeism numbers, and you mentioned somewhere between 500 and 750 visits. Is that individual students? Because that would be
It wouldn't actually-
15% of our student
It wouldn't actually
population.
end up probably being individual students, so because it's cyclical, right, you could be going to the same family two or three times a year, as I'm talking with my hands. You could be going 2 or 3 times, so that we're just talking visits. It might not be that many individual students. And again, you have to assume a certain number of families are not going to wish to participate.
Understood.
And some of the students who might be identified, it may end up being corrected early, because there is just a certain number that after the initial contact, do you know what I mean, the issue may resolve.
Okay.
But we did look at the number of students who are chronically absent, and it's a significant percentage of those.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so the number of visits you're talking about in totality then, like you're expecting over the grant whole period?
Correct.
Okay. All right, so then the grant period, let me just dot my i's here. The grant is 150,000 and it's for 7/24 to 1/26.
It's through January 31st, 26, but we'd end January 1st to make sure that we have the final payout
Okay.
for staff before the end of the month.
Okay. All right, and then I'm glad that you brought up that you're going to put something on the website, because I was going to ask, like, how do people know what to expect when you get this? What to expect for, a home visit? So that would be good if that's up there, because I know that if somebody called me and was like, you need a home visit, then I'd be like, well, what are they going to do? Are they going to come here and ask?
Through the training, I haven't spoken, so
go for
I
it.
can't sit here and not speak the whole time.
Yeah.
Through the training, they actually have you do a scenario of
Okay.
of calling, like somebody is the caller and somebody's the parent, and then you usually switch, and you usually start out by saying that you don't bring up chronic absenteeism. You more like introduce yourself. You say that, which is why we wanted to have people at every school. You talk about, oh, you're John's mom. I've met him through whatever at school, and then you talk about maybe having a visit, and you give them the opportunity. You ask if they need, who would they like to have somebody with them? Where would they like to meet? So there's a lot of opportunity to make them feel comfortable, and it's not like it's this thing that's happening to them, like somebody just knocks on your door one day and says, hey, we're here
Right.
to talk about John not being at school. So it is more, it's a mindset shift, which I think is what Amanda was getting to how we look at these instances and how we interact with families. And the other thing is there's a call beforehand to set it up, to make sure they're willing. And you also say, you introduce yourself and you say, you ask permission to bring the partner, your home visiting partner with you, so they're not surprised by somebody else showing up, and explain why you're bringing a second person. You work as a team, that type of thing.
So the person making the call is
The
going
person
to be
making
one
the
of
call is going to be one of the
visitors.
visitors. and you're talking to a parent or guardian, that's got to be one of the people that you're meeting with. Sometimes they might want to bring somebody, sometimes they might need language support. You ask if there's anything that they need in that way. Then you do a reminder call, like the day before, to make sure that you're still on. Then after, you do a follow-up call, because like John said, you're more talking about, like, is there some support that you would need? Is it a transportation thing? Is it something? And you may have talked to the parent about possibly connecting them with resources. You do a follow-up call to give them any information you had promised to give them that you've gotten, or put them in contact with somebody else at the school. So it really is a different thing. It's not something happening to them. It's something that we're doing together.
Gotcha. So then the training that you guys went to, you are going to be giving the training to the?
Nope.
No, you're having.
It's
okay.
online, and the trainer will be doing it. It's from, is he from Crack?
Home Visit Hub.
Home Visit Hub. It's a 2-hour training. That's going to be part of the cost too. That's in the 150,000, and they all have to. And they keep track. They will send a list after it's an online thing. If you are there less than 50% of the time, it is highlighted in yellow and sent out to your coordinators
Okay.
because
so,
you haven't been trained. So it's a 2-hour training.
And it's virtual.
Virtual, yep.
So not like I need to go fill out these 5 questions at the
No,
end and
it's
pass
virtual,
my
and
thing.
it's two set hours. So I think the one that we were going to do in September is what, 3:30 to 5:30? So, yep.
So in part of that, you have the program overview, what it looks like, what the conversations should be about, and it's just what Michelle said, and then you do scenarios. So you end up role-playing, and you do mock calls with parents. So they have some of the people try and be the parent, some people are the home visitor, and you role-play in these mock calls to get practice at it. They also offer update and kind of like an office hours and other trainings where you can come and continue practice for mock calls. And one of those invitations just came out, today.
Awesome. Okay. And so then you said you had 37 applicants. How many positions are you hoping to fill?
So we were looking in the grant, we said up to 40, so
Okay.
we're close to our goal. What we need to go back to is make sure that we have people at all levels. So we're doing it K-12, that's inclusive of Eagle Academy.
Oh, okay.
So we're looking for people at all of the schools.
Okay. Awesome. And then the people that end up being the home visitors and the people on the attendance committee, after hours, are they getting paid like you're doing this program, you're going to be paid a flat fee, or is it like per home visit? How does that work?
Hourly.
Okay.
And this is, so we're paying, when we wrote it in the grant, we wrote it in as our hourly curriculum writing rate.
Okay.
So they have to submit a timesheet.
Okay.
And as part of that, they also have their home visit log, so that says who is the visitor, who is completing it, and that goes with their timesheet.
Awesome. And then to get the final payment of the grant, is that based upon meeting our goals, or is just successful
The grant's
implementation?
paid as we go along, so basically we would submit it in payroll and then receive reimbursement. So we'd submit payroll, receive reimbursement. So we'll be drawing this down
Yep.
over the time.
Okay.
So we have to help to make sure we're on track for the goal, we have a in-person check-in meeting with our program coordinators as a district, and we have follow-up meetings with them to see where we are. So we'll need a cycle or two of monthly home visits to get our data, and then we'll discuss our data, and we'll be adjusting as we go through. We don't need to submit because we chose the Qualtrics survey.
And do we already have the grant money, like, started?
So the grant, we
and
have grant
approved? We have
allocation. So
we
the
have the
money
email?
the money's there.
Okay, good.
We can submit against it, but it's like in most grants, we're going to pay it through our payroll, and then we're going to receive the reimbursement for it.
Okay. All right. Was there anything else I had? No, I mean, I'm excited to see this work. I know I see it on the news. Probably last month they were talking about giving additional funding. So I'm hoping that if we are successful, that the state will decide to continue funding it, and maybe we'll we won't have to figure it out. Maybe it'll be presented to us. So thank you very much. I appreciate your presentation. It was great.
All right, thank you.
Cool. All right. So moving on to board guest 6.
Yep, Mr. Dagg's not going anywhere.
Not going anywhere. Eli Whitney
So
Roof.
hopefully this isn't too confusing, but in new business, item number 11, as a board, you need to reapprove something you approved once before. Mr. Dagg will explain as Director of Operations kind of where we are with that. I know Chairwoman Riley, you were attached to some of those emails, so hopefully between the three of us, we can explain this well to you. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Dagg, but you will be voting on this. So after Mr. Dagg is done, someone can either make a motion to move that line item up while we have Mr. Dagg, or you can ask all of your questions to Mr. Dagg, and then we'll let him go home. So I'll leave that up to the board.
Okay. Go ahead,
All
Mr.
right.
Dagg.
So back in November of last year, I think it was November 28th, Board of Ed meeting, you received, and I think Fred and I may have been here to say that the Eli Whitney roof project was complete. That was almost correct. The roof project documents and the project itself was complete. However, in part of the audit of the program, one invoice was not paid as part of it. That invoice was for the final payment for the project management for $1,000. When we were notified of that, I brought that back to Joint Facilities Committee on August 29th. At that committee, they voted to pay that last outstanding invoice for the Eli Whitney roof. Now that that invoice has gone out and is paid, the state's going to require us to re-vote on that because not all final documents were paid when that submission was put in. So as a board, we would need to re-accept the project. So you as a board tonight will need to vote to approve the Eli Whitney State Project number 0490143RR roof replacement project as complete.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for this one? Okay. Does somebody want to make a motion to, okay.
I make a motion to reapprove the Eli Whitney State Project.
Well, nope. We need a motion to suspend,
Make a
yeah.
motion to suspend the rules.
Yep. And move up. Not move up item 11A.
I make a motion to suspend the rules and move item 11A up to item 6C.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Banks, second by Mr. Ryder. Any discussion? Okay, can I have a show of hands of those in favor of? Okay, 7 in favor, none against. Okay, so now, Dr. Callen, if you'd like for the motion.
Yes. I move to reapprove the Eli Whitney State Project, roof replacement project as complete.
Okay, and it's state project number 049-0143RR, roof replacement. Okay.
Second?
All right, motion made by Dr. Callen, second by Ms. Pickett. Any discussion? No discussion. Can I have?
Sorry.
Go ahead, sorry.
I'm
Ms.
now
Pickett.
late to this. I'm just thinking about future stuff. We had previously talked about school modernization pieces. Does this roof replacement project impact what we can do with Eli Whitney building?
So at that same Joint Facilities Committee meeting on the 29th, I had outlined some changes in state law. As long as the building remains for some public school or town use or community use, there is no longer the obligation to apply for a waiver of forgiveness for the unamortized amount of a school project.
Thank you for answering that on the spot. I appreciate that.
And Ms. Pickett, if you want, I have the handout that Mr. Day gave everybody outlining the new legislation. Any other discussion? Okay, can I have a roll call vote, please, Kathy?
Mrs. LeBlanc,
Yes.
Mrs. Pickett,
Yes.
Mr. Ryder,
Yes.
Mrs. Acree,
Yes.
Dr. Calnan,
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman,
Yes.
Chairwoman Riley.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Day.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay, moving on to item number 7, Superintendent's Report.
Just
Mr.
a few
Delonge.
things tonight, thank you. Sorry. First of all, upcoming open house events. Enclosed in your packet is a list of EPS planned open house and school events. Please refer to each of our school newsletters for additional school events and happenings. Also, JFK Principal Parent Focus Groups. So we will hold a focus group meeting for John F. Kennedy parents and students in conjunction with our JFK Principal Search. It says additional information about this will be forthcoming, but it is ready to go out. It's going to be this Thursday at JFK Auditorium, and we're going to start at 6 o'clock. And as of now, we have 3 candidates who have made it past the first round. So staff, parents, and students who would like to go to the JFK Auditorium, we'll be there about an hour and a half. We're going to elicit feedback after you hear about a half an hour of interviews from each candidate. Dr. Barrios will be running that. I'll be there as well as the search committee will be there. And so it's a real chance for the community to give some input for the next principal of JFK. And just a quick update by me. Since the last time I saw you, we had professional development, but we've had a couple of weeks of school since then. So I just want to say we had a great opening. Visiting all of our schools was very positive, and although there will be some challenges this year with the reduction of many staff and programs, I witnessed incredible resilience from our staff. I was very happy to see positive attitudes and a sense that we're going to be okay. The students that I met looked happy and ready for the school year. I was very encouraged with the first 2 weeks of school, and will continue to get into our schools and for one more board meeting, give you updates of the things I see. I also want to touch base about busing and athletics. I don't do Facebook, but it usually gets back to me that, hey, this was on Facebook, and apparently buses and athletics was on there the past couple of weeks. So I just want to touch base on that real quick. So as in most districts, this is an ongoing struggle. Smith Bus is in a little better place this year than in years past in terms of staffing. Unfortunately, 2 drivers needed to take a leave for family emergencies in the past 2 weeks. Totally unrelated, but just happened to happen right at the beginning of school. But both drivers will be returning shortly. I heard one driver returned early this week, and another driver is coming back shortly. Unfortunately, this had an impact on one of our JV sports teams missing a game, which will be rescheduled. Smith Bus Company has since then dedicated 1 bus every day that goes directly to the high school that's used explicitly for sports. And so that helps Mr. O'Connell, our athletic director, at least have 1 bus to start planning, and then he fills in the rest with other buses he can get. But you can imagine this is very complicated, as there's already a severe refereeing shortage. I don't know if you know that, but it's really hard to find referees right now. And most districts are in the same boat as us with bus driver shortages. So all athletic directors are working as hard as they can together to rearrange schedules almost on a daily basis, get referees during this time if they're able to, and it complicates matters when the districts need to change times due to the driver shortage, as you can imagine. So this is not just an Enfield issue. The athletic directors are being as creative as possible to make all games work, and we'll continue to work on ensuring that our teams are making it to all of our away games. But I can't promise you this will not happen again, but I can promise you that we're working as hard as we can to try to rectify it. Finally, and I hope she's watching, but if she's smart, she probably isn't, but I just want to congratulate our Human Resource Director, Maureen Jewell, who has been in our district for 35 years. She started in May 1986, and she should have retired July 30th. And if you know Maureen, she knew we did not have an HR director. So instead of retiring and sailing off into the sun, she has been working. She's been working the past 2.5 months. Her last day is this Thursday. So I just cannot tell you how much we will miss her. So Maureen, if you're watching this, as I said in her formal retirement party, she really is the glue to central office, and it's going to be a real big void to fill with her going. So if you think of it, drop her an email, just if you wouldn't mind, just really thank her for an amazing career in the Enfield Public Schools. And Maureen, just publicly, I just wish you nothing but the best. And that is it for my superintendent's report, interim superintendent's report. Let's not forget that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Long. I appreciate that. Okay, so we'll move on to 8 audiences. Okay. All right. Maureen Griffin. All right. 4 minutes. Name and a relationship to the district, and
Maureen Griffin,
yep.
mom of high schoolers. The LEAP program sounds like a good thing. I would have one question where it said that they are tracking subgroup numbers as well. I'm wondering, is there representation of subgroups in the visit staff? Because I think that would help engagement. Now, on to what I came here for, always. I sent an email to you guys about things that had disturbed me. And then I heard a podcast in this past week that really hit it right on the nail on the head about the issues that had disturbed me. And it was about how context matters in what you're doing, how you're doing it. You should know the situation, know the participants, know the role you yourself are playing, and adjust appropriately to meet those things. Person that I had the most disturbance with isn't here tonight, but hopefully he will listen to this. And it also brought up this point where people are always told, if you're in a situation, just be yourself and you'll do great. That's not always the best thing, because who you are needs to conform to the role that you are playing. And who I am when I'm out with my friends is very different than who I am here, who I am with my family, because we are all multifaceted and we need to bring what is appropriate to the situation. Another context matter incident that helps highlight why so many people have concerns regarding the new security program and the need to track interactions. It's not about pointing the finger saying the police are bad, the police are doing this. It's about picking up on trends. And it's also about realizing that theory is wonderful, but in the messiness of actual events, that it can be tripped up in what theory says is appropriate may fall very short in the actual thing. The incident in particular that I'm talking about is, Charlotte, you mentioned the most recent school shooting. I was blown away when I got a text from the high school the very next day saying they had done a lockdown drill. And I expressed a lot of frustration with that when I had a child very distressed afterward. The response that I received was that the children had been told prior to the lockdown that it was a drill. Okay, theory, yes, that's a good idea. When you're talking a logical response, when context matters, it hadn't just happened in a school that they can identify with easily the day before. Something like that needed to be postponed. Context matters, not only because of the timing, but the presumption that telling the children that right before it, this is just a drill, don't worry, shows a limited understanding of trauma. And we have a lot of kids in our district that have experienced trauma in many different ways. We have kids with PTSD, we have kids with mental health issues, that the logical response, okay, I know it's a drill. Okay, if you've never encountered something that puts you in a state of extreme fear, you can process that and respond appropriately. However, if you have experienced that, a trauma response does not follow logic. It's when the bodily response races out ahead of logic and thought. And then you have to pull it back. The person has to pull it back somehow. That's extremely hard when you've been through trauma. It's a process of learning how to do that. It's a process of repetitively doing that. Being thrown into that in the very first few days of school, when it's just happened in real life the day before, shows a need for more training in what trauma is, what PTSD is, what complex trauma is, and its implications, especially in our youth. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Maureen. Okay. Next is number 9, board member comments. Who would like to go first? Go ahead, Mrs. Blake.
Starting this evening. Okay, Ms. Griffin, thank you for your thoughts on this matter. I mean, the fact that we had another school shooting is just beyond my thoughts. In the past, when we had school shootings, it was what you saw on TV, newscasts, interviews. But there are so many videos of what was happening inside the classroom that students took, that our students can see. And that adds a whole element of anxiety and trauma, because you're watching these kids sit in a classroom and you're listening to what's going on. And it's heartbreaking. And our kids in Enfield, our kids all over the United States are seeing that. And I can see that a person with anxiety, trauma responses, PTSD, would really react to having a lockdown drill. But this is something we have to think about as a society and even as a district, that what's happening in these schools during those moments are really far-reaching and coming into our students' homes because they're looking at them on their phones and their tablets, and it's scary that our kids are afraid to go to school, parents are afraid to send their kids to school, no matter who's standing at the door. So thank you for mentioning that. So then I just wanted to mention, since we're talking about mental health and trauma, September is National Suicide Prevention Month. If you're in crisis, you are not alone. Call the 988 Lifeline for help. Today happens to be World Suicide Prevention Day. Ask your friends and family members how they are. Be there and listen without judgment. Help at-risk friends and family members by connecting them to resources for support and safety, and follow up. Through the chair to the superintendent, Mr. Lungi, I really appreciate you sending us the class matrix for the start of the school year. Would we be able to get a comparison? Would we be able to get one as of June 2024? So we can compare the two, how school ended and how it started.
I'm not sure, but I'll check.
Okay, because I think it would be, we can sit there and say the class sizes are large, and I think you really have to see how many fifth grades we had compared to how many fifth grades we have now. I think it would be helpful, definitely through the K through 2, 3 through 5. I would like to also.
Could I just add, I'm pretty confident I can do K through 5. The
I wouldn't
secondary
ask you.
schools is a
I wouldn't ask you
whole
for the
other
secondary
animal.
schools.
Yes,
No,
I think
no,
that's
just K
a
through 2 and
much
3 through
easier
5.
ask.
Yeah, no, not the high schools. I would like to, it would be nice to be able to compare it, to give people really an idea of how the budget cuts really impacted, because somebody saw the class matrix and was saying, well, is this bad? So if we have a comparison, that would be great. I'd like to also talk about that the budget cuts have impacted more deeply than people understand, not only with academics and some on the TC who don't really even care to know, but the GSA, the Gay Straight Alliance at Enfield High, they have lost substantial funding for GSA activities. The GSA has also lost critical support staff as well. It's critical that they have social workers, guidance counselors, and other support staff present at all meetings, and they simply do not have the resources at this time. And there are some students who are simply not out at home. So this is a really tough time for our kids because these are some of the resources that they had in school as a safe sharing space. This advisor is offering as much support as she can. So I just wanted to put that out there. Through the chair to the interim superintendent, could we get an update regarding like how we are finding coverage and different things like at Enfield High and JFK? Because we are so short-staffed at those schools, and I know that can be a challenge. Let's see. Okay, so Mr. Lungi, thank you for bringing up Smith Bus. The town council had an absolute lot to say about that last week, and it wasn't very nice. I was also very frustrated, but to hear that there are different plans in place and they're going to be able to implement different things, it's frustrating because at the end of the day, it's our kids that lose out, right? And that's where it bothers me the most, is that you have kids excited to go to a game, and then they find out at 11 o'clock that they're noon that they're not going to have a bus to their game. So the kids are already dealing with a lot, so I don't want them to deal with much more. One of the things I also want to talk about this evening is on Monday night, the town council is going to take a vote on the cost of field use for nonprofits. So let's say Enfield Little League, Enfield Ramblers, Enfield Soccer, any nonprofit group, First Readers, this is for field use right now, they're going to be increasing the fees thousands and thousands of dollars. So the only way like Enfield Ramblers, Enfield Little League are going to be able to recoup those fees is to increase the registration. And Enfield Ramblers actually just lowered theirs to try to make more of a connection to see if they could get more kids to come out and play football because the numbers were down. So this should be on everybody's radar for the Monday night vote. I've heard it from our minority leader, from Councilor Sakala, from Councilor Crissati, that the field increases are going to be thousands and thousands of dollars per team, per season. So buckle up. I just have to say that it's the middle class families in Enfield who are getting the short end of the stick, whether it's education, whether it's support services, whether it's recreation outside of the school district. It's the middle class families that have to put food on the table, that are working 2 jobs. Sometimes there's 3 jobs amongst 2 parents, caregivers, retired grandparents, but this is all falling on the families of Enfield. So please have that be on your radar. I also wanted to talk about and just say my heart goes out to the students and staff and families at Appalachia High School. The world is a scary place, and as Chairwoman Riley said, kindness matters and mental health support matters. Tomorrow is 9/11. Each year, Miss Lori Gates, who will not be appreciative that I mentioned her, organizes with EPS for students to make cards to be delivered to our first responders. Ms. Gates picked up the cards and is happy to report that there were 929 cards made by EPS from Stowe to Enfield High, being delivered this evening to all 6 fire stations, EMS, and EPD. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. LeBlanc. Who would like to go next?
Go ahead, Dr. Kalman.
So I reviewed the material distributed to us at our last board meeting by a representative from Showing Up for Racial Justice, and the data that was presented were troubling. In the school year 22-23, the arrest rate per 1,000 students in the town of Enfield was exceeded only by that of Waterbury in achieving the dubious distinction of having the highest student arrest rate in the state of Connecticut. The question is, what's responsible for this troublesome finding? One undeniable possibility is the disproportionately high arrest rate in Enfield involving students of color. State data indicate that in school year 2019-2020, Black students made up only 6.8% of the student population in Enfield, but accounted for 21.6% of arrests. And a similar disparity was noted with respect to Hispanic students. Of particular relevance, nationwide, school arrests more than doubled after the introduction of armed guards into schools compared to the situation prior to this intervention. We must ask, can we expect the disparity in arrest rates to increase even further as a result of an armed police presence in Enfield schools? At the very least, we have to be far more open to the collection of data relating to disparity of arrest rates. The public really has a right to know. We have to be prepared to ask ourselves, what were the circumstances surrounding the arrest? Were there other options available? Who made the decision to call the police, and why was that decision made? Is there a demonstrable connection between the decision to arrest or not arrest and the race or ethnicity of the child involved? The successful struggle for racial and ethnic equality hinges on vigilance. We will never root out discrimination unless we remain aware of the possibility of its presence. We need to be doing a better job in collecting the relevant data and acting proactively as the need arises. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kelman. Anybody else want to go next? Ms. Acree?
Good evening. Again, I would like to welcome back our students and teachers, staff, administrators, the central office staff to a 24-25 successful and productive school year. I know that there are challenges like larger class sizes and certain programs that had to be cut, but at the present, we do have to stay positive, because I believe that our teachers will do their best with the resources that they have for our students. And after hearing Mr. Longy's report, it seems as though that the students and the teachers are trying to remain positive through all of these challenges. I will reiterate that I'm looking forward to hearing about all the accomplishments and the success stories from about our students, and I'm looking forward to seeing work displayed and hearing beautiful voices at certain school events. So again, I would like to wish everyone a happy and productive and successful year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Acree. Ms. Pickett?
I'm going to echo some of what Ms. Acree just said. It was a great start to the school year. I have 2 kiddos in our schools, and both are having a great start. So thank you to the staff. I also want to especially thank our PTOs, especially at the elementary level. I know they work really hard to put on a back-to-school breakfast and things like that to show appreciation for our staff. And typically, it's a few mighty families who coordinate all of that. So thank you to those who contributed and supported that back to school for our staff. I posted on my Board of Ed Facebook page, as a parent of a 4th grader, I received my first ever Smarter Balance assessment scores. So if you have a student who is currently in 4th through 9th grade, you should have been mailed one. It's a state-issued letter along with a cover letter from our public schools. I encourage our families to please review that information alongside other data. So that is one data point. I think it's really important to put out there that that assessment is not an end-all, be-all, but it is just one data point. But it's important to look at that data point alongside your student's report card, teacher's feedback, and your own view of your student. I would also say, I think for us as a district, it is for me, the SBAC scores tell more of a story about us as a district and what we are providing as far as curriculum and instruction. And I will say, when I look at my son, I think it's a perfect cohort of students to follow, the 4th grade kiddos who had had COVID start. So he was a kindergartner when we were in hybrid model. That's how he started his kindergarten year. So his first 4 years of education in Enfield was with our ARPA COVID funds with all those additional supports and structures. And now it will be without those. So I think it'll be very interesting to look at kind of how that data shifts and what we can share about our district as far as what supports have impact on our students. I do want to reiterate some of my concerns and pressing issues that I referenced in our last meeting. I do want to remain positive and hopeful, but I think it's really important that we remain honest and transparent about the impact, especially on our students. So I had sent an email to our curriculum committee regarding some data. A lot of that has been shared as far as our class size. I would like some comparison data just to be able to share that story. Thank you, Michelle, for your quick reply, and I look forward to kind of those continued conversations. I am, through the chair to the interim superintendent, the class size data that we got, especially at the K-5 level, does that include data on when there's special ed inclusion students?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then the second point I want to reiterate before my last point is really about supporting our staff. I am extremely concerned about how we are supporting our teaching and support staff, how we're addressing morale and the structures of support that they need. Many of our staff were displaced and put into positions that they might not feel so successful in, and I am really hopeful that we are thinking about them and how we can support them to remain in our district in positions that they feel supported and successful in. I've had some time to process the last Board of Ed meeting, and I have some continued concerns regarding our security model. I am not sure if we are truly a model for school security or an outlier, especially with the amount of resources we have devoted to armed staff without any investment in the physical safety of our buildings. I'm not okay with the amount of Enfield Police Department employed people responding to student behavior versus the number of behavioral and mental health trained school professionals. On September 2nd, I emailed Board of Ed and Town Council leadership and school and town admin with some questions and considerations that I'm hoping can be addressed through joint security and shared with us as a board. I want to share these concerns because I know I've gotten some questions from the public. So the first concern is clarity on role and purpose. I would like to see the finalized MOU and job description. I repeatedly asked during these discussions and at public town council meetings around the role of the armed guard and behavior. I am deeply concerned about the armed guard and SRO role in student behavior intervention, especially after Dr. Kalnin's comments and our already concerning arrest date. I asked many times about this role and student behavior, and it was never described as an intended role. Yes, I'm very concerned about the internal safety. It is a reality that we have students with mental health and behavioral health challenges and with specific legally binding accommodations and supports. So really, really concerned about the role of our armed security and staff behavior. I'm also worried about if we have adequate Enfield Public Schools staffing and supports for safety, supervision, and proactive support. The next concern I have is around training. So I understand that they have had extensive police training and they were PMT trained by our school. I'm really concerned about de-escalation, trauma, and implicit bias training. I'm unsure what process and protocol is being used, but again, I remain concerned about the response to student behavioral needs and the coverage. So if folks are going to be covering as overtime PD officers, how are they up to speed on our EPS protocols versus PD protocols? The budget, how many positions, overtime. The public deserves a full and complete picture of the costs, especially as we weigh the impact of the investment. I'd also like a clear understanding of what's being covered within the Enfield Public School budget and what the town is covering. So it's my understanding that Don Crabtree has stayed with us and there is an additional security position. So having an understanding of that staffing and who's covering what. Same with coverage and the overtime of that and the training and support of those officers. And then lastly, my comment really is in line with what Dr. Kalnin has already said is around data collection. So whose responsibility is it to keep data on student interactions for this program and our SRO program? Our district has one of the highest arrest rates already. How are we ensuring this model will not encourage this? Who is keeping the 911 data, the arrest data, and crisis response data? How will that information be shared with us so we can monitor the impact on students? I also continue to remain concerned about our Route 5 signage. I'm working on some contacts at DOT, so hopefully we can get things moving. But again, thank you for the great start and look forward to the school year.
Thank you, Amanda. Mr. Ryder, would like to go?
So I have some school-specific updates that we'll talk about later in the evening for Eli Whitney, but it's just some general school updates that haven't been touched on yet. Is just another reminder to all parents and caregivers to make sure that you sign up for Parent Square to get access to weekly newsletters and to all school communications within your building. As far as Enfield PTO goes, all the pages have been updated with as much information as I have. The calendars are filling up. It is still a work in progress, but we have all the dates for upcoming PTO meetings and events and the welcome back picnics and our open houses. All that is in there. So enfieldpto.com/HMS/EHS, et cetera. I also wanted to take a minute to talk about SafeGrad. They also have a page on enfieldpto.com/safegrad, SAFEGRAD, enfieldpto.com/safegrad. They have a few promotions going on for our class of 2025. There is a mums sale to help out our mums and dads of the class of 2025. They also do, of course, the year-round flocking. And then there's also an opt-out fundraiser this year, and all those links are on enfieldpto.com/safegrad. I also encourage the class of 2025 parent volunteers to reach out with any updates. We've been in touch about once a week since mid-August, and everything that I know about is up there, but if something's missing, please reach out. enfieldpto@gmail.com. Also, the JFK Meet the Candidates Night. Interim Superintendent Longy did not say this specifically, but we also welcome the grades 3 through 5 families. So if you have a 5th grader and you want to just listen in and be a part of the evening, please feel free. You'll obviously be at JFK soon enough. The last non-school specific update for this week is next Friday is our first night home football game of the year. We always see the best attendance from the town that first Friday night, and I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware that they had that on their calendar for next Friday, the 20th, at 6 o'clock at Enfield High. So that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder. Ms. Cushman?
Good evening. Just through the chair to the interim superintendent, Mr. Longy, at our last meeting, you had mentioned the $275,000 of the ARPA and ESSER money that had been promised from the state, that it had been moved to the approval process. What is the standing on that? Have we?
It's still sitting in the approval process.
Okay. Just curious
Good
about
question.
that. But, and I also
We've done everything that we can do at this point, so it's just waiting on the state.
Okay. Now, Mrs. LeBlanc, you had mentioned about what was the what were the class sizes for last year. Would you mind if I shared your response? Okay, because I had reached out to Mr. Longy regarding that same thing. How, it was quite a task to give us all the numbers for all the class sizes for everything up through the high school. So not wanting to task them with, doing it for, what was last year? I just asked him if he could just give us a general idea. And his response was, it varies between 5 more students per class up to 20 more students per class. It depends on the section, the course, the grade, and demographics of that particular class. For example, we did our best to protect kindergarten numbers, and they do not have more than 5 more students per class from last year. But our 5th grade class is very large and saw an average increase of 10 to 12 students per class. The high school has larger classes, especially the elective courses, and of course now they have very large study halls. So just to give that out in public, just a general idea of how our class sizes have been affected by the layoffs. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cushman. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I was gonna ask it too, but you can go ahead and ask it. Go for it.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask this earlier. I don't know if this is necessarily a request through you to the interim superintendent or to anyone who wants to listen, but basically the Democratic caucus is confused and concerned as to why the request of a joint insurance meeting is being ignored. The Joint Insurance Committee was established after the monies in the claim fund balance were depleted by a former town manager. To be clear, the claim fund balance is the money contributed by both the Board of Ed and town employees for their health insurance. So here's the request. The Democratic caucus would like a complete accounting of transactions in and out of the claim fund balance for the 2022, 2023, and the 2023 and 2024 years. There is a policy in place that money in the claim fund balance can only be used for insurance transactions, because if you don't know, the claim fund balance is basically a bank account. The Democratic caucus would like to confirm that the town is appropriately carrying the amount of funds in the claim fund balance based on the number of employees and the current and the projected claim experience. And when I say Democratic caucus, I mean from the Board of Ed, from JV to varsity. It's going to the town council too. The Democratic caucus would like the balance of the claim fund broken out by the contributions from the BOE employees and the town employees. The Board of Ed insurance increased by 11.5% for the 2024-2025 budget, which has been the highest increase. We will be interested in seeing next year's budget increase as the Board of Ed is down 120 employees. Granted, not all of those employees were enrolled in insurance through the Board of Ed, but we would think that we would not see an increase that large next year. The information given to the Board of Ed business manager from the finance director regarding the yearly insurance budget increase should also be provided to the entire board. Also, any quarterly updates provided from the finance director to the Board of Ed business manager should be provided to the board. The Democratic Caucus is requesting that the Board of Ed business manager be included in the joint insurance meetings. The Democratic Caucus would like an update regarding our current carrier, and perhaps it's time to go out and see if we can get a better rate, services, and incentives for our employees. We could potentially see if there can be a cost savings for our employees. Part of the discussion should include a discussion regarding the BOE separating from the town and finding their own insurance carrier is a viable option. We will not stop until this meeting is scheduled and the above questions are answered. It is not lost on the Democratic Caucus that numerous requests from our board chair have been ignored for at least 4 months. The reason why we are self-insured is to mitigate costs to the Board of Ed and town employees. As a Board of Ed, we have an obligation to employees to ensure that best practices are being used in their contributions to the claim fund balance. Let's not forget that both the town and the Board of Ed employees had to pay more premium over the years to recoup the money depleted in the claim fund under a former town manager. At this point, the Democratic Caucus is not sure if we have to get the unions involved, the press, the community, or what, in order to get the above information in a meeting scheduled. The Democratic Caucus requests all information surrounding this situation be in writing. And I will also be sending this as an email to the town council leadership. So that's what I have on joint insurance. But I appreciate you always asking.
Thank you, Tina. Okay, so since you ended with that, I'll start with it. I just wanted to say that, the last email, I've sent 3 emails now requesting a joint insurance meeting. The last request was on September 3rd, I believe. And I was requesting that we meet because obviously it would be good. We have a new superintendent and we have a new HR director. We'll get them up to speed and we'll have our claim experience. Do we need to go out to bid? Do we have performance guarantees? All of those things were in the email that I had sent to board leadership, the people that are on their joint insurance committee, as well as Assistant Superintendent Longy, the new incoming superintendent, and HR director, and the town manager. So also in that email, I requested another joint town council Board of Ed budget meeting. It was suggested that we set up a recurring one, which is great, but after that response that we were going to have one set up, I still haven't heard anything. So it's kind of disheartening that we've asked a lot of times. I even asked it on TV in our last joint board and town council meeting when I was sitting right over there. I asked for the joint meeting. I just want to get a grasp on, what's going on with the insurance and where we're at. I mean, can we get a better rate somewhere? Do we need to split from the town and we'll get better rates for our employees? I don't know the answer to those questions, but I think those are good questions to have answered. So I hope that we can get that on the books. I just wanted to thank Mr. Longy for sending us the class size data. Much appreciated. I wanted to talk about the bus situation. I heard rumors through the grapevine, people were saying that we didn't have a bus to take kids to Powder Hollow for soccer. We don't take the kids to Powder Hollow for soccer. That bus was going to be taking them down by the shore to Lewis Mills?
Yeah, I think it's Burlington, Connecticut, Lewis Mills, yeah.
It's far away. So that's where the bus was supposed to go that day. And since the company is down drivers, we did not have a bus to take them. My only question is, and I think we're going to maybe explore these things in leadership. I've talked to some people who are bus drivers or were bus drivers. Some suggestions are, do they have vans that we could take instead? Maybe we take 4 vans because van drivers don't need the same CDL license. They need a passenger endorsement and the physical, but they don't need the CDL. requirement like a bus driver does. So if maybe we had vans to cover in a situation like that, that might be a good idea, but I'm sure that there's a cost because you're gonna be paying 4 van drivers instead of, 1 bus driver. The other thing I heard is some school districts, and this is obviously another cost that we probably don't have money for, but some of them, if they don't have enough drivers, they'll then call DATCO and get like a regular bus to take the kids. But obviously, that's another charge, so I don't know if we have funds to be able to do that or if we can even do that. But those are just some ideas that I've encountered and we can talk about if we have any options. Then the other thing I wanted to talk about was Parent Square. I've seen it talked about on like the JFK PTO page and stuff. And I don't know the whole gamut of Parent Square. I know that it's super easy to use on my phone if I'm sitting at work and I'm like, oh, was there an event tonight? Or I get, a notification. The app on the phone is super simple to use. And navigating our website on a phone is not an easy thing to use. Facebook's easy, but not everybody has Facebook for like PTO. Is there a way, and I don't know who puts all the events in on a lot, because I know Crandall's got a lot of events in there on their calendar, but there's a calendar option. Is there a way that all of the events can be put in on like the JFK and Enfield High calendar? Because, and I'm not just talking like sporting events, like if your kid wants to sign up to go to Trinity Tech, right? When's that meeting happen? When's the drama club meeting? When's the career fair at the high school? Like all those other important dates that sometimes gets lost in translation with teenagers that don't want to tell their parents, or their common answer is, I don't know. Is there a way that we can get those things in there so parents don't miss them to nudge their children along?
Yeah, Ms. Middleton just wrote it down, and we'll check with Dr. Wiley. I just want to let you know, too, we invited Dr. Wiley to the October 8th Board of Ed meeting. She's going to do a whole presentation on Parent Square.
Okay.
So if you're watching and you want to learn more, tune in on October 8th, as Dr. Wiley will blow your socks off with a presentation.
Yeah, because I was messing around in Parent Square, and I'm like, oh, there's a calendar, and I picked it, and I'm like, well, there's like little blue dots on all the dates that have stuff, and I'm like, okay, this is good. Can we fill that up? Is there a maximum limit of how many events you can put in on a day? So I think that would be helpful to some parents who have teenagers.
No, I just wanted to say, to Dr. Wiley's point, she'll probably address this in October. They're still in like soft launch mode.
Yeah.
But yes, all that stuff can be
Cool.
put in
All
there.
right, good. That will be helpful to
Some
our
schools
parents.
are, some admins are further along with it than others because we're also like,
Experimenting.
eighth day of
Yeah,
school and
exactly. Yeah,
all that
no,
jazz.
I didn't expect everything was going to be there, but if the capability exists, that should be an end goal, is to try to get all those things in there. Okay. And yeah, that's all my comments for this evening. So we will move on to 10 is unfinished business. We don't have any. 11, new business. We did A, except now.
Yes, I actually, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and add an item to the agenda. I propose adding an item 11B, since we've already addressed 11A, and that'll be to approve the 2024-25 student representatives and alternates that will be presiding here at the dais with us for this coming school year. This was something that came to us, it reached us after the agenda was posted, so it's something I'd like to add to the agenda.
Okay, so motion on the floor by Mr. Ryder.
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Pickett. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, so show of hands to suspend the rules. All those in favor? There's 7 in favor, none against. Okay. So then, item 11B is to approve the 2024-25 student representatives and alternates. Would you like to give a brief rundown, Mr. Longy?
I would love to. So per Board of Education Policy 9160, student representatives, and alternates will be appointed to the board in a non-voting capacity and will attend all Board of Education meetings. If you want to see the policy, Kath, do they have the policy, Kath?
attached.
Great, excellent. Student representatives and alternates will attend an orientation session prior to the October 8th board meeting. Principal Clark recommended the following students as the 24-25 student representatives and alternates. So for the 12th, the student reps, 12th grade, Isabella Denald, who we had Izzy last year, and Olivia Nucio, grade 11. And the alternates, Zachary Maynard, grade 12, and Colton Hutchings, grade 11. So therefore, you may take action on that. Once you do take action, me and Mr. Macchio will plan a time to go over to the high school, and we'll go over expectations with them. And then on the 8th, if we get all that done, they'll be ready to start up with you.
Okay, great. Yes, go ahead. Any questions?
Do we need to make a motion first to like do it? Motion.
Want to make the motion first? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve our 24-25 student reps and alternates as named in our document.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. Pickens, second by Mr. Ryder. Discussion. Go ahead, Dr. Calnan.
So just to be clear, in the policy that you referred to, the only meetings that the student reps are allowed to attend are just board meetings, correct? Nothing else?
And subcommittees,
Are they allowed to attend?
per the policy. That was going to be my comment.
Oh, apologies, right here.
So student representatives in item 6 says be eligible to sit on committees and subcommittees of the Board of Ed if deemed appropriate by the board and appointed by the chairman. So my suggestion actually was going to be, I love student reps, and I know they can't be voting members, but I would love to see them participate more in item 5 and 6 of their privileges and responsibilities. We're participating in discussion and speaking on any motion or issue on the agenda, and possibly joining some of our subcommittees, since that's where like a lot of our work is. It'd be interesting to see. I know the schedules are horrendous and they're volunteering to do this, but I think student perspective in some of our discussion would be really meaningful.
Anybody else?
I,
Go with Dr. Calnan.
no, that's okay. That's all right.
Yep.
I'm just thinking right off the top of my head. There may be times, though, when issues come up at subcommittee meetings that are very sensitive, and that we may decide, in retrospect, maybe it wasn't a good idea to invite the student. I mean, the intentions might have been perfectly good, but I just wonder if that might put a crimp in committee activities.
Well, I'll just say this, and because this isn't my decision, this is a board policy, this is your policy. All your subcommittees are public, open to anybody. So I just think anyone can, whether it's student or non-student, can go to your meetings.
Anybody else? I'm actually going to agree with Amanda on this one. I was actually just thinking it would be really great to see them exercise number 3, commenting under board comments on the agenda, or make a report under the committee reports. I think that would be cool, because basically, yeah, I've only seen them report on what they're doing in school. I think it would be interesting to hear their perspective on some things. So if they're brave enough, I welcome them to exercise all of their privileges and responsibilities. I think that's a good idea. Get them a good taste of the real world. So, go ahead, Dr. Ryder. Dr. Ryder. No, Mr. Ryder.
I'll take it. No, I would just ask Superintendent Macchio when he starts, and Superintendent Longy, they can just present this at your meeting with the students and just make them aware of what they are invited to, and if they can make it, that'd be great.
Yes, so that's what we do. We'll go over the policy with them, and we'll make a point of that. Dr. Ryder, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Dr. Longy.
Okay, is there any more discussion? Good. Doctor, okay. So then,
Call the
roll
vote.
call vote, please, Kathy.
Mrs. LeBlanc?
Yes.
Mrs. Pickett?
Yes.
Mr. Ryder?
Yes.
Mrs. Acree?
Yes.
Dr. Calnan?
Yes.
Mrs. Cushman?
Yes.
Chairwoman Riley?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. All right, so next up is item 12, Board Committee Reports, Curriculum Committee.
Next meeting is Thursday, September 19th.
Okay. Finance and Budget Committee, Ms. Akers.
That will be Monday, September 23rd.
Okay, and Policy Committee, Ms. Cushman.
Policy meets next Tuesday, the 17th.
Could I just jump in real quick there? Location is changed. It's in Mr. Daig's office from now on, so anyone in the public, if you come to see policy, it will not be in the office that it previously was. It'll be in Mr. Daig's office, which is right down the hall. Kath, do you know the number?
215.
215. So just want to say that.
Okay, perfect. And then Leadership Committee, I was hoping to schedule a leadership meeting for next Wednesday if we could fit that in, but I can ask more formally later, but that's what I was hoping for. Okay. Number 13, liaison reports, joint facilities. Okay, so we had a meeting on the 29th of August. We talked about, Don Digg was actually there, and he gave us the new legislation for the school construction grants. It definitely looks like they are trying to prepare districts for universal pre-K because they have upped the rates for reimbursement on schools that are using areas specifically for birth to 3 or in pre-K. Plus, they changed the rules that if you did a project on a school and the bonding is not up, if it is still used as a school or a community building, then you're still going to be fine. So those are some of the really important ones. And then there's some solar reimbursement rates and stuff like that. But I have the handout if anybody wants to see it. I also have it in email too. So, but the other thing that we talked about was the roofs. Alcorn is only going to get 11% reimbursement because they do it by square footage of actual rooms that are being used
For education.
For education. So it doesn't count hallways or bathrooms. It's just the actual physical space of education. So that's kind of a bummer on how to nickel and dime taxpayers. Then we had an interesting conversation about the roof on the library, and they're not going to have enough money to complete that one, and they wanted to move money from a roof that we have not done yet, that's in the rooferendum as a primary roof, to the library roof as a secondary roof. And one of the primary roofs would have been Stowe, I believe, is they wanted to take
Yes.
money from there and put it on the library roof. And I will say that myself, Mr. Ryder, and Ms. LeBlanc, who were board members at that meeting, specifically made a point that we do not want them to move money from a roof, a school roof that was approved in the rooferendum, to be moved to an ancillary roof, based on an assumption that, well, we're going to get modernization and that will take care of itself. So we do not want to move money based on an assumption.
Because we don't want to scratch a lottery ticket that
That's
we don't
true.
know if we're going to get the money.
Right, so we were very specific, and so the committee didn't approve that transfer of money. The committee sent it to the council, knowing that they should make that decision because it was not a unanimous decision in joint facilities. So I think that's important. And then we talked about the fields situation, which they already had a presentation. It was the same thing with the big arrow on, here's the timeline of events for the turf situation. So hopefully we can fix that. Am I missing anything else? I think that's.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes, go ahead.
Do you know when the town council will vote on that roof?
I don't know.
We don't know. We don't have
don't
their
know.
agendas. It could be as soon as this Monday, it could be down the road. I
I'm
don't know.
not sure.
I think it's important to keep an eye on that.
Yep, yeah, because, and another thing is because they had already done that to finish the annex.
Yep.
They had taken from a roof and moved the money over.
They took
So
pieces from
Pieces
different
from
roofs.
different roofs and moved it over there. So it's just a domino effect. Every roof is just going to take money from more, and by the time you get to the actual roofs that are on the primary list of what the voters came out for, you're going to be down money, and you're not going to be able to do it, and that's not what people voted for. Okay, so that's joint facilities. So the next one is JFK.
Next meeting is September 19th at 6:30 here at Town Hall.
Okay, joint security, we have a meeting.
This Friday, the 13th.
Yep. So Amanda, I have your email. I was just waiting until we had a actual meeting. Enfield Mental Health Committee.
Yes, Mr. Longy, Dr. Kelman, and I are planning to attend the Enfield Together Coalition Mental Health and Wellness event on September 27th at Asnuntuck Community College. And after attending this meeting, we will schedule our mental health committee meeting in October, hopefully with newfound inspiration and ideas from the coalition for our own committee.
Thank you. Enfield Culture and Arts.
I have to check and see when their next meeting is. I missed the last one because I was here.
Okay. And we're all done with the summer concert series, right? We don't have to worry about that anymore?
No more summer concert series.
All right. And any school reports and updates? And before I start that, I just wanted to interject. Because the newsletters go out on Parent Square, we don't get them in our email. I mean, Mr. Ryder might get some, Dr. Ryder might get some, but we haven't gotten them. So, okay, thank you. So go ahead, Dr. Callen.
Actual doctor.
First of all, I object to the term Dr. Ryder.
I do too.
A couple of quick announcements for KITE. The Parent Leadership Academy is now open and accepting applications. Applications can be found on KITE's website or by contacting Leslie Lawler at LLAWLOR@enfield.org. KITE is helping families with young kids make their voting day plans. If your children will be coming to the polls with you, email Brianna Beckstrom to register for a play pack to keep them engaged while you vote. Brianna's email address is bbeckkstrand@enfield.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Callen. Anybody else? Mr. Ryder?
Okay, specific to Eli Whitney this time. Tomorrow night is our welcome back picnic and open house. And just so the other 3-5 schools are aware, they're all tomorrow as well. But specific to Eli Whitney, tomorrow night is our welcome back picnic and open house. Join us for a picnic dinner on the playground from 5:30 to 6:30, and then head inside to tour the school, meet the teachers, and see the classrooms. There'll also be a Kona ice truck there with treats for purchase. And the Enfield PTO meetings will be held on the third Tuesday of each month at 5:30 in the Eli Whitney Library. And I noticed that a few of those third Tuesdays of the month, there was 3 or 4 of them that are on like vacation Tuesdays or a no school Tuesday, so they're going to work on that. And that's all I have for this week from Eli Whitney specifically.
Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Acree?
All right, for Prudence Crandall, Mr. Dupere states, it was wonderful to have students back in the school. The smiling faces brought light back into the hallways and classrooms. Staff is working hard implementing and learning the new reading curriculum, and we look forward to seeing its success. Open house for Crandall will be tomorrow night from 6 to 7. Please make sure while you are there to sign up for conferences. There will be a flyer in all the classrooms and at the front door. Download Parent Square to stay up to date with all school-wide communication. Prudence will once again be raising money for breast cancer through our district-wide Pink Out Day. All students are invited to wear pink on October 18th, as well as giving up an optional donation. And everyone at Crandall is looking forward to a great year.
Thank you. Anybody else? The only thing I have is open house for Hazardville Memorial is on Wednesday, September 18th from 6 to 7 p.m. Okay.
And just so we can mention all of them, so tomorrow night we have Prudence Crandall, Parkman, and Eli Whitney all have their open houses. And then the following Wednesday, as you'd mentioned, on the 18th, Henry Barnard, 5:30, Enfield Street, 6 p.m., and Hazard Memorial, 6 p.m. The 19th, next week, is Enfield High's open house at 6:30.
Could I just jump in, Scott? It's 6 o'clock. Sorry about that. It's 6 to 7. That's
Which
our
one?
mistake.
6 to 8. 6 to 8.
Oh, not even.
Sorry.
Which building?
Enfield High.
Enfield
Sorry.
High, okay. 6 to 8:30. I'll be there. I have a junior. JFK is September 25th, their open house. Stowe's open house is October 1st, and the Eagle Academy open house is October 8th.
All right, thank you. Okay. Number 14, approval of minutes. Do we want to group them all together
Yeah,
again?
I can make the motion.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve the special Board of Ed meeting minutes from August 26th, 2024, and the regular Board of Ed meeting minutes from August 27th, 2024.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. LeBlanc, second by Ms. Pickett. Is there any discussion?
Any other changes?
Okay, no changes, updates. Okay, all right, so then can I have a show of hands in favor of approving the minutes? There are 7 in favor, none against. Okay. Approval of accounts and payroll. There isn't because you haven't had a meeting yet. I'm sure after the next one, we will have it. There'll be a long one next time. Yep. Okay. Mr. Ryder, do we have any correspondence or board communications?
Nothing that wasn't included in Kathy's recap last Friday.
Okay. Mr. Longy, no need for executive session? Okay. So then I need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Pickett, second
Third.
by Ms. Ryder. Ms. Black? Okay, so show of hands
Dr.
in
Blank?
favor. 7 in favor, none against. Thank you, and have a good night.
Okay.